It starts like any other morning. The coffee machine gurgles, emails flood in, and social media is, well, social media. But then you notice something strange.
Huh?
Your bank app won't open, you refresh, nothing. You check the news, and that's when you see it.
Today we're going to share you the biggest news of today. Dollar collapses, and the financial markets are in chaos.
You scroll in disbelief looking for reassurance. Maybe it's a technical glitch, maybe it's another Twitter hoax. But no. The stock market is in free fall. The Federal Reserve has issued an emergency statement. Gas stations have stopped taking credit cards. And when you try to grab your usual breakfast, the cashier hesitates. "We're not sure how much to charge, sir. Prices keep changing." And that's when you realize this isn't just another financial crisis. This is something far worse. What just happened? To understand what's going on, let's step back. The US dollar isn't just any currency, it's the backbone of the global economy. For decades, it's been the world's reserve currency, meaning other countries hold trillions in US dollars to trade and settle debts. But what happens when that foundation cracks? Well, we've seen it before, just not in America. If you think a dollar collapse sounds impossible, let me remind you, no currency stays powerful forever. History has already given us multiple warning signs. Weimar Germany, 1923, the hyperinflation nightmare. Picture this. You walk into a bakery ready to buy bread. The price is 200 marks. You check your wallet, it's enough. But by the time you reach the counter, the price has doubled. This was Weimar Germany in 1923. Printing too much money after World War I led to one of the worst cases of hyperinflation in history. The German mark became so worthless that people literally burned money to keep warm, because it was cheaper than buying firewood. It didn't matter how much money you had in the bank. It was meaningless overnight. Venezuela 2016 to present. The modern-day collapse. Now let's look at something closer to home. If you think a collapsing economy is just an old history book story, ask Venezuela. In 2016, Venezuela was one of the richest oil-producing nations. Then, the government printed too much money, inflation spiraled out of control, and suddenly, a cup of coffee cost millions of believers. A month's salary couldn't buy a carton of eggs. Citizens started weighing stacks of cash instead of counting them. The currency became so worthless that people started using it for arts and crafts. Literally, bags, purses, even origami made from Venezuelan believers because they were worth more as souvenirs than as money. And when people couldn't afford basic goods anymore, the barter economy took over. People traded rice for medicine. Mechanics fixed cars in exchange for bags of flour. Farmers became the new millionaires, not because of cash, but because they had food. And if you still need proof of what happens when money dies, let's visit Zimbabwe. In 2008, the Zimbabwean government decided to solve its economic crisis by printing more money. The result? Prices doubled every 24 hours. The government printed a $100 trillion bill. Yes, trillion. Which still wasn't enough to buy groceries. People needed wheelbarrows of cash to buy a loaf of bread. Eventually, Zimbabwe abandoned its own currency and started using US dollars instead. The government literally admitted, "Our money is worthless." All three of these collapses started the same way. Too much money printing, loss of confidence in the government, hyperinflation destroying savings overnight. Now, could the US dollar collapse in the same way? Some say it's impossible, that the US controls the world's economy and too big to fail. But then again, history has a funny way of repeating itself. A collapsed dollar means instant hyperinflation. Overnight, everything from rent to groceries to gas becomes unaffordable. At first, people panic. They rush to withdraw money, but banks shut their doors. Because what's the point? The money is worthless. Businesses start pricing goods in gold, silver, or foreign currencies like the euro or Chinese yuan. Some supermarkets refuse US dollars entirely. Then the second wave hits. Crime skyrockets. When people can't afford food, they take it by force. You start hearing stories of looted stores, hijacked delivery trucks, and people breaking into homes for supplies. Now, let's zoom out. A dollar collapse doesn't just affect Americans, it reshapes the entire world. Why? Because countries like China, Japan, and Saudi Arabia hold trillions in US debt. If the dollar fails, their economies are dragged down too. Without a stable dollar, the world would be forced to choose a new reserve currency. Maybe the euro, maybe the Chinese yuan, maybe even Bitcoin. One thing is certain, America would lose its status as the world's financial leader. If you woke up tomorrow to a collapsed US dollar, what would you do? Let's be clear, cash would be useless, But here's what would hold value: food and water. The number one priority: gold and silver. Unlike paper money, precious metals retain value. Skills. In a barter economy, a mechanic, a farmer, or a doctor is more valuable than a millionaire. Land and shelter. Owning property would be a game changer when cities become unlivable. The uncomfortable truth? The people who would survive best aren't stock market experts. They're the ones who know how to farm, fix, build, and barter. Could this really happen? You might be thinking, all right, but is this just doomsday speculation? Well, here's what the US government is already doing to prevent it. The Federal Reserve is constantly adjusting interest rates to control inflation. The US has the world's most powerful military, which gives it leverage in economic negotiations. Most global trade is still settled in dollars, meaning other countries don't want the US economy to fail. So, is the total collapse of the US dollar likely? Number possible? History says yes.